creator and founder of Earth and Star Spiritual Wellness Center. And today I have with me one of my favorite healers in the entire planet, Roland.
And I'm Roland Walters.
And I'm Roland.
A teacher as a healer as well, but mainly I'm a spiritual guide and counselor for people.
His website is inthehealinglight.com. inthehealinglight.com. And I feel like you have a very particular way that your healing goes, or a particular focus. And it's been so closely correlated with my own that I've always felt a real kinship around our healing and our path and everything. But you've evolved so much over the years that if you could encompass your specialty or how you do healing work, because it's not like anything else. It's not like traditional shamanism. It's not like traditional Reiki. It's something that's very much just Roland.
Pretty much, yeah. I don't have a specific modality. I just do what I do. You know, it's just that. So, for me, the goal is to help lower or reduce low vibrational energies. And for us as humans, that's emotions. And that can carry over to the souls. And for all the experiences our souls go through, sometimes even that wounding sticks with it as a soul level. So it's a matter of reducing and raising our vibration by reducing those lower vibrational energies, those emotions, and those same emotions that cause us to have health issues, that cause us to not see our true self, to limit ourselves.
And before our talk, you said that you called this, that you had this special vision that was kind of around the soul itself, not lost souls or other energies like that, but you were very specifically called more towards the human soul and healing that soul. Is there anything you want to share about that part?
Yeah, every time everything's changed with the work I've done, but I feel like I keep getting molded myself to work towards this direction, which is our souls. We may carry energies that we shouldn't be. I've come across with people, we don't, in this life, and the soul goes away and comes back, not necessarily clean and pure. Sometimes they come back still somewhat wounded. Maybe because they didn't learn a lesson. Maybe because we didn't heal ourselves. Maybe we didn't do something else. I don't know. But I often hear souls in people feel like they keep repeating patterns. They can't, they in this life they're stuck and they're repeating patterns. And then when we dive into the soul's doing the same thing, but for multiple lives, multiple dimensions. Maybe multiple dimensions with this life.
Mm-hmm.
So, by helping the soul release, to help the soul remember their truth, which is, it's a soul, not a human. It's not a body. It's not a physical 3D thing. But that wounding that we all carry puts us into the state of mind of who we're not.
So how did you get into this originally? Was there an event, or was it part of your lineage? Was there a thing? What put you on this path towards looking at the soul, realizing what it's not, and how to help others come out of what they're not?
Lineage, grandmother of mine was a healer as well. I wasn't aware of that until she was in a very sick state and was not able to share that information. But she did something called talking out the fire, which used to be a situation where anybody that got burned in her farming community, they would come to her with people who got burned before going to a hospital.
So fires were very common where you're from.
Yeah, it was tobacco growing area, and a lot of people use fires to dry tobacco and stuff. When this would have been when, let's say, go back 70 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so there was fires all in these tobacco growing areas and stuff for drying out the tobacco, and kids often got burned, people got burned, and also some of them still had, out in the country, still had these old cook stoves and stuff, and people got burned. So everybody knew she was the lady to bring a burn victim to first, and she would talk out the fires. Basically, she'd talk out until they didn't experience as much pain, and then they would take them to the hospital.
Do you know how she did that? Because I know you didn't
Just
witness it.
A little bit. So what I heard from my mother, who wanted to be taught this, but her mother, my grandmother, said she couldn't pass it on to her. It had to be skip a generation and come to one of her sons.
Ah, okay.
So, but she said she saw this one little girl that had fallen into one of those fires and literally had burned like half of the torso. And said the girl came in screaming and crying. She put her in her lap, and she would be chanting this, almost like a mumble, but she chanting something just quiet enough that the little girl could hear, but nobody else could hear. And she'd lick her finger and touch, and she chanted a little more, and it would touch all the way around the burn mark. And by the time she'd get around, usually what I was told was the child or the person wasn't hurting anymore.
So taking out the energy fire
Of the burn.
the pain of it.
Yeah, that was talking out the fire. It's like the burning feeling stopped.
So if that gift had to skip a generation and is in you, is it safe to say you know how to talk out the fire in the work that you do? How can that correlate?
Well, in theory, I would say yes. I should be able to. Now, is there any technique or special way that could have been taught to me? Yes, but I guess in theory we should also already know. And I believe that part of that knowing is just believing and knowing, you set your intention and it'll do it.
But if fire is likened to the pain of something, the hurtful energy of something, and what you're doing is removing all of these heavy and dark energies from people, all the things that they are not, that they shouldn't be, so that the soul remembers who it is.
Right.
Then I think that you're talking out the fire.
in a different perspective, but yes. Yes. So yeah, we have a tendency to forget our truth, who we are. The truth, even with the soul. So it's if we are so wrapped up in not feeling worthy, or so wrapped up of feeling alone, or any of those type of things, or just fear. The bottom line of all is fear. We can't see our truth, and it's we have to remove that pain.
So truth, in this particular instance, the removal of pain equaling truth, seems like truth is the soul's path.
Truth is the soul.
The soul. The oneness.
It's the oneness. It is the everything. It's the I am.
And you use the I am a lot. It's part of your website. It's just part of, I feel like the I am is just part of who you are and how you express yourself. Can you explain that in ways that we can understand?
I'm still working on that understanding myself. Well, first of all, I am what's on my website, what's on like my business cards and stuff. It's a triangle, and in it says I am, and that triangle was sent to me by meditation through when I was in meditation a few different times. And it came each time harder and faster because I guess I wasn't taking it on. The first time it came to me, it just came nice and slow, floated up and then floated away. Why I didn't take it on, or I don't know. But the next time it came a little faster, and by the last time it's like that, you're gonna do something with it. And even for 6 months, I didn't take it on. I even put it on flyers and stuff, but it was me using it in a human way of, I am worthy, I am loved, which are good affirmation statements, but it's still not taking on the truth. So when I finally took it on, it's that acceptance. It's, my truth, your truth, everybody's truth is we are one. We are part of that consciousness of I am, source of God. I am source, I am God. I'm only a fleck of it, but that still makes me, I'm not the creator, but I am a fleck of it. I'm a speck of it, and therefore I am. But that one little speck, that little spark, is enough to create. It's enough to allow us to heal. And it's basically a knowing. It's knowing our truth, and knowing that there's more to it than this body. And we're not lesser. With I am, we're not lesser than angels or ascended masters or anybody else. We're one, and we're all part of the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can look at it as that way and see our truth and see within, then we have all of that. So there's no separation.
I love that. I feel like no separation.
No separation. There's none. What we think is separation is all here, and I'm as guilty as anybody. We get into the logical and things like that, and even with, speaking with you earlier about the NDE, that one of the big messages when I go back and think about it and how I reacted then, and the information that came along with it was, one side of me is all comfortable and feeling love and feeling the energy of the heart coming through the individual that's pulling me. And the other side is my mind going, oh no, this is not real. I can't do this. Why me? All the questioning, all the doubt, the doubting Thomas. All that stuff. And it goes back to get out of the head and get in the heart. And I still work with it. Still, it's because we have this 3D life that we're in, and we're going to have our struggles and everything, but is to get back to the I am that we are, especially when it comes to the work and helping somebody else heal. And no, I'm not really a healer, but I help somebody else heal themselves. But I try to get them to see themselves first, so they don't doubt, so they know that's not their truth, or that pain, or that fear. So it's losing track of my thoughts there, but
I love how you explained it, because I feel like it is something tangible that you can understand, that all of the soul coming from creator, God, or source, even though we're just a small part of it, each person is a small part of the big, that makes us that. So we are that spark, which means that we are that we are. I am that I am.
That I am. Yep.
So it's like your entire focus is showing the truth to the soul that it is that I am.
And that's it's like my job is to bring a message, but it's to get you to look within, to see your truth, soul's truth, and do understand, even though you might be one little spark, but it fits perfectly in a puzzle, and it completes that puzzle. So and then you're one with the whole, and you're never separated from that puzzle. You're always part of that puzzle, and the puzzle is I am, is God, therefore I am that I am. And it's God, it's source, it's however you want to describe it.
Now you mentioned an NDE, a near-death experience. You can't just mention something like that and just leave it.
Leave you hanging?
Yes, I think we need the full story here.
Okay.
From the beginning.
So essentially, before I turned 5, so 50 years ago, we were dairy farmers, and I fell in an in-ground silo 8 or 9 feet headfirst onto concrete. And I remember clearly through my life of seeing the wall as I fell. I remember hearing my mom scream at my brother, "Don't touch him." I remember getting to the doctor's office. I remember leaving the doctor's office. But it was just all those little bits. And everything was brought up a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, through hypnotherapists. And that's not what I went in hypnotherapist for. I actually went in there for claustrophobic type stuff that affected me in my flying when I fly. And none of that came up. None of the claustrophobic stuff came up. It was as soon as we got started, the whole memory of falling and everything just started pouring out, and it just replayed. So what happened was, I got to see myself fall. I never saw myself hit, but I saw myself fall, and then I was laying there, and I could see my brother, who's 12 years older than me, and my mother, and I'd been pulled off at an angle. It's like a bright, warm yellow light pulled me off at an angle, so I'm kind of looking back at an angle at them.
So like a whole out-of-body experience.
Yeah, okay. And I could see myself laying there, and it was just for a moment, almost like they were like, mom's like telling her brother don't touch him, but she's even like, what do I do? And then I pulled back a little further, and then now I'm in the car. They picked me up and they put me in their old car with the vinyl bench seats in the front seats, and they're driving down the road, and my head's in my mom's lap. I guess my feet are my dad's lap. He's driving, and then all of a sudden I was getting further and further and further away. It's like I got so I couldn't see them, and then after a period of time, when I realized I'm being pulled, I look, and there's a man that's pulling me by my left hand.
All right, so stop for 1 second. Your physical body is placed in the car to go to the hospital. Your soul, as they're driving away, stays at the silo.
Well, it's actually, no, I didn't stay at the silo. It's like they were just leaving, and then I was being pulled away.
Just pulled up.
I was getting further where I couldn't see them. It's like everything went out of focus with that. But I remember trying to pull back because I wanted to go that way. Mm-hmm. And as a little kid, it was one of those things that there's a certain amount of fear. Mm-hmm. None of this makes sense. I didn't understand, but I just, I was trying to go back to my parents, going back there, and there's somebody pulling me the other way, and I'm trying to pull back, and then eventually I couldn't see them, so I started focusing on who was pulling me, and there was, anxieties, fear, what have you. As I'm looking at this person, he's not looking at me, but at the same time there was a calmness in the hand. The mind's spinning, going, what is going on? Why won't this person let me go? Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of, as we moved along, everything got into this vastness. It was just like, if you look up at the stars where you go where there's no lights anywhere around, and it's just a perfectly black night, and you see all these stars, throw yourself in the middle of that. It's like we were walking on nothing. And it was just this vastness, it's just open. But you could see clearly, but there was nothing there. And the whole time I'm still kind of pulling back and like, why won't he let me go? Why won't, I don't understand. And after enough of that, I guess this individual, I don't know if I was saying it out loud, if I was thinking it, but it looked at me, turned around and looked at me, paused, and he says, "You're not done." And he turns around and keeps going, and he's still pulling me. And I guess he's pulling me because he knew if I had a chance, I was going back the other way. Mm-hmm. So after a while, I honestly started kind of forgetting where I was being pulled from because I was just so focused on what was around me. And it was just vastness is really the only word. It was openness. And it's like there was nothing underneath, there was nothing above, but just this, I don't know, just space. And I had no clue where we were going or what was going to happen. And I guess I was just focusing on him and looking at him, but I didn't recognize, I didn't know who he was or anything. And after a period of time, you know, it's all these feelings like, why me? Why am I being pulled? What's going on? I don't understand. And a couple comments came through from him where he actually stopped again. And one of the first ones that came back in the comment was when next time he stopped was actually started seeing these people walking up. It's like all of a sudden just they started appearing off to the side. They're coming at us. They didn't look quite right. They were darker colors. They didn't look like dressed like us. They were shapes of people, but they were dark blues, dark oranges, dark reds, grayish colors. And I was starting to pull away more because they're coming closer and closer and closer. And it was like 5, and then it was 10, then it was 20. It just kept getting more. It's like they were just doubling. It's like, where are these people coming from? Anyway, he stops and points at them and says, and I didn't want to look, and he was pointing and said, you know, look at these, and he said, you know, they're here for you. And you know, as a kid, I'm like, and
I think even an adult would be like,
well, you know, I don't want to sound negative. It's just the two sides of the whole thing is I feel this calmness and tingling in the arm and in the warmth in the heart and chest area, but the mind is spinning. You know, you know, where we as humans we get into this, we're so much in our head, we can't be in our heart, and for the heart of healing of ourselves or being there for others and things like that. And one of the next things he said was, "Earth souls to help lost Earth souls."
So you're given a mission.
You know, and saying, you know, they're here for you. And I'm a kid. I'm going like, I don't, you know, I'm not standing there as an adult. I'm a kid. And I'm looking at this adult guy who's, you know, squats down and tells me these things, and not understanding. Honestly, when he says lost souls, Earth souls here to help lost Earth souls, I don't even know if I could have told you what a soul was at that time. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, I might guarantee I couldn't have. Mm-hmm. They just looked like people, and they didn't feel right. They didn't feel happy. They were just, I guess maybe heavy. You know, and it was kind of intimidating. So, but this in myself was in the internal battle of what the calmness I was feeling from him, but then my mind is spinning the whole time. So anyway, he gets up and starts walking again, and he's just going right along. He's still pulling me, but now we're getting so many of these around me that I'm actually staying a little closer to him. So he's not having to pull me as much. He's still got me by the hand, but I'm walking with him. And then it's magnifying. It's like 100, 150, 200. It's just, I don't know, it's just the crowd got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it was enough that I was just only looking at like the back of his head. I'm just, you know.
Did you feel like these were lost souls? Looking back now?
Looking back now, yeah.
Okay.
Because as we moved along, and there's parts of this I'm kind of leaving out just for sake of time, because we were just walking, and it was just as fastness. But they were all leaning into us, and they were looking at me, and they were looking at him, and they just kept getting closer. And then just by chance, I looked behind us. I finally looked away from him and looked behind us. And those that were behind us were getting brighter. Their colors were changing.
Okay.
They were, you know, starting to, like you'd see the dark blue get light blue, and then it got more whitish, and and they stopped looking closely at us, and they started looking at each other, like interacting with each other, like they were checking each other out, you know. And the more we passed, it's like as soon as we passed them, they were changing. They were getting brighter, and then they were moving on, but the group just kept getting bigger. So then I became kind of like, what is going on here? And I actually tried to get him to look, and he just plodding right along. And but I'm watching, and I keep looking back, and it's like, this is crazy, because they don't feel good here, but they feel good there, and they seem happy here. Up here, they're not. So I look at him, and I look back, and I'm watching, kind of like a kid being pulled by dad or mom or something, going right along. And then I turn around one time, and everything's changed. He's gone. Oh yeah, not quite to that point just yet. Let me back up on it. I turned around one time, and there were these people with robes walking with us, and they were in a V formation, such that like they were almost like if you were, say, somebody was cutting through the crowd for us, because the crowd got so big. Everybody was coming so close to us. Now we had this big gap where we could just walk without these feelings right up on us. And it was looked like 11 or 12 people at the time, men and women, white robes, and they're just cutting right through the people. So watch them for a while, and then I'm watching back and forth, going back and forth, and then one of the times I'm turned back around, everything changed, and the guy's gone, and I'm actually standing still. I'm not even walking. And the whole environment goes from this vastness of nothingness to an evening like in a meadow. There's trees along the edge, there's like a short grass, and out in the center of this small meadow it turned out with 12 people. So I think maybe actually it was 11 people, and they were out in a circle around a circle of rocks. And on the ground was one circle of rocks is about 25 or 30 feet in diameter, and in the center was another circle of rocks is about 3 feet in diameter. And I'm on the outside of it. I'm just looking at them, and I'm looking like any kid or any person. I'm looking at everything else, how everything's changed. Like, how do I stop here? What all happened? One of those times I look back and look forward, and I'm looking at one of the guys, and I look down. I'm in the center circle, and I realize when I look around, they're all around me now. And it's like boom, boom. Just in that center space. And that one guy's, he's tall, he's coming my way, and he's walking up towards me. And each one of these individuals is wearing like a medallion that hangs about over the heart. And it's 2 rings, one thick ring and then another ring, or more of a center ring. And it looks like a hammered metal. It literally looks like somebody just beat out some metal. And white robes, men and women both, all in this circle, and this one guy comes up, and as he gets closer, my arms and hands start tingling more and more and more, and he comes up and he asks me to do the hand movements that he's doing. He's kind of doing these hand movements, and to be honest with you, I don't remember the hand movements. I was just fascinated with this tingling that just kept getting stronger and stronger on my arms, and all these people, and everything's changing. It was a lot to take in, I guess. But everything felt good. And then he says, just hold your arms out like that. So I held them out, and my whole body started vibrating and tingling and vibrating, and it was just like, wow, what is this? And I'm looking at my body, and then when I looked up at him, his face his upper torso and his face is glowing so much I can't even see his face and stuff anymore. And he's starting to back up. And that's when I guess I realized the rest of them were doing some kind of, just like almost like saying Om, but nonstop. And I don't know if they were doing it the whole time, or if it was just all of a sudden it just started and I just noticed it. So I'm just kind of taking everything in. I'm vibrating like crazy. I'm feeling good. And he keeps backing up. And then I get hit by a jolt of energy. It came straight down. And it was so fast, and it hit me so hard that it just kind of disoriented me. And by the time I kind of came back around, the whole group had already walked away from me and was walking together, walking away. And I'm just sitting there buzzing and tingling and trying to figure out what was this. And I just kept watching them, and they just kept going and kept going. it was a ton of thoughts like, now what? What's, where am I going? What do I do here? And in a blink, I open my eyes up, and I'm back in that vastness, and that guy's standing in front of me again. And he's telling me it's time to go back. And I remember telling him I didn't want to go back, but it wasn't because I didn't want to go see the family. It's because I felt like they were telling me stuff to do, like I had a job to do. And I'm going like, I don't know. Literally my thoughts were, I was like, I wasn't saying this out loud. I was thinking it, but he could hear my thoughts. And I was like, I can't do this. I don't know what this is. And he says, you can do it. And I'm going, what is it?
Isn't that all of our questions? What is it?
and I don't know what it is. And I'm just thinking these things, and I said, why me? And he says, I chose you. And then all of a sudden, I was in the doctor's office. It was just like boom, boom, back. And my parents never knew I was gone any period of time, so I think maybe I was coming and going, But after falling, going to the doctor's office, it's just a small town doctor's office, didn't go to an emergency room or anything like that. They checked me out, and so nothing was broken. I didn't even have stitches or anything, and basically sent me home, and I was like exhausted for 2 or 3 days, and they just thought I was going to take some healing. But it was, I think it was from all the NDE. It was all the activity and all that in that time frame. But so anyway, I didn't even remember any of this until I did the hypnotherapy session, and it just all poured out. And when I did the hypnotherapy, that part where I got zapped by the energy, I'm laying on the table, and the hypnotherapist is beside me, and it hit me while I was on that table. And she jumped back. She said, your whole body looked like it came off 2 inches off the table. And because it felt like it hit me here, but ended on the table, but the NDE felt like it hit me here. So anyway, it was quite the experience, considering my work had been leaning towards, anyway, for this, leaning and working towards working with souls anyway. And this is like a validation. It's like it came at the time. It's like, yes, keep going with it. I still don't know what it completely is, but
I do.
It's a validation.
I think we do. I think that we do. It's interesting because you went through this thing, this near-death experience. You end up in a space where you're in the vastness, and this gives a whole new definition to death. Because I think a lot of people, when they really go deep into spirituality, they describe a place of vastness, a void, a place of nothingness, of neutrality almost, and that is the death space, essentially. And then you get further, because he's telling you as you go through there, you're not done, but he's still taking you through. And then you're given a mission instantly. Human souls helping human souls. This is your mission, and you're surrounded by these lost souls, right? And then you go through, and you're noticing that just yours and his presence moving through them, they're healed.
Yeah,
they're healed as you move through. And then you're initiated. They give you the symbols. They give you the hand movements. They give you the chanting. They give you the shock of electricity. You are initiated with the gifts required to heal those souls. And you know that I believe that healers have this special something in the heart space. It's something that healer can see in other healers. There's something about the heart space that makes you a healer. But you also have healing hands. You have a lot of energy in your hands. So when you said that it was going, that the whole time your hands and arms were tingling, and then you had this shock into your heart, and they were hand movements that you were given, the initiation had to do with your touch, with how things move from your heart and out of your hands, and vice versa. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I love this. Thanks for sharing that story. I think we're done for today because that's a lot to handle. I don't know. But essentially, I I think that we know on a subconscious level, because you said you didn't remember this until you were an adult.
Right.
Do you think that initiation set you on your healing path to becoming who you are today? Or was there other events that led you into healing and that was just the initiation of your gifts?
I believe initiation started when it happened, because I've just always felt stuff. It was just like most of us. We didn't have anybody to relate to. We don't really open up. We just kind of keep living in this 3D world and just, day to day. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm just different, or I'm odd, or whatever. But it's always those questions, like, having conversations with people, like, don't y'all feel this? And then once that question comes out, then all of a sudden you feel it more, and you just want to run with it. And then usually the other person's going, okay, let's back up a little bit. But so it was always that, but it wasn't the kicking in of gifts until my daughter Shayla, when she was like 5 months of age, had a heart attack and died and was brought back, which I would love to have been able to hear if she'd had an NDE. But when she was in the hospital, like, I'd felt stuff all my life at that point, so I would have been upper 30s, 38, 39 at that time. And the little girl was in the hospital, 5 months of age, like a heat lamp over her, tubes all in her. Mm-hmm. They're actually pumping her blood for her to give the heart a break. And I walk in and I want to see if she's warm, because she's wearing nothing but a diaper. And just like any dad would want to do, or any mom, just like, is she warm? Is she cold? And I went to her chest, and of course she's only this big, so her chest is yay big. And I went to touch her, and I couldn't touch her chest. It was like, this is her chest. It was a bowl of energy, and I could feel it. I could literally feel this bowl of energy over her chest. And when I first felt it, I remember pulling my hand back and kind of looking around, and did it again. I was like, and then I guess the third time I pushed on it, and she's laying kind of spread eagle, so all her arms and legs are out. And when I did that, she jumped, and she'd been unconscious for days, just kind of in somewhat comatose state for the healing. And I jerked my hand back and felt it again, and then pushed again. She jumped again, and that was the only movement she'd done in days. And it's like, I remember just leaving that night from the hospital going, okay, I got to do something.
And to clarify, you weren't touching her body. You were touching that ball of energy over her body, and she was jumping. She was feeling it.
Right.
Wow.
Hindsight now is pull that away. If I knew what it would have been to pull that energy away to help move some of that heavier pain energy from the heart, to allow the heart. But it was literally, I was not touching it. I could touch her feet and her legs. I could touch her hands, touch the top of her head. But that area
needed the fire pulled out.
Needed the energy pulled out of it.
Yeah.
And I just remember leaving that night going, I got to figure this out. I got to do something. I got to stop messing around and do something. Mm-hmm. And it still took me a while, but it was just, at least I was on the mindset of, let's start checking things out. What is this? This happened. This was real. This was my daughter. So that is, the NDE was, when I learned about the NDE was after that, but it was, I think the NDE kind of kicked things it kind of kept it going all my life. And then this kick started everything with her passing, and then doing the heart attack and everything. And then it became one step after another after that. Once you opened that door, it took off from there.
And I think that, so that kind of brought you into this. You'd already been initiated into your gifts, and that she also was involved in you and I coming together. Mm-hmm. Because our first session together, I think it was our first session together, before we got on the phone, her spirit came to me. Yeah. And I was like, and I was fairly new at all of this too, and I was like on the phone with him talking about, there's this child in here, and I thought it was someone scary. you know, and you said, no, that's my daughter. And I think you even guided me through a conversation with her, like telling her it's okay or something like that. Did she go to all of your sessions? Did you notice her spirit showing up to your sessions?
She was with me. I can't say all of them because I'm not even certain. Some she would come very close in and strong in, others she stayed back. But there's been at least a half a dozen where she visited people beforehand. And then there's been more that she's gone to see afterwards. Like she just, following up almost, just seeing. But yeah, she played a huge part. And I believe she's kind of stepped back more. I think she's getting closer to doing her next journey. I get that it won't be here on Earth again, but it's more in a upper level, I don't know, teaching others or something. So
she might be a guide then?
Maybe. I mean, she's been essentially partially for me a guide. So
yeah, I remember you telling me that she, and we're getting real vulnerable here, so I'm sorry if it's uncomfortable. How long did she live? How old was she when she passed?
She just a few days before she passed, she just turned 10 years old.
So you did get 10 years with her. Yeah. And then she was just your guide on your spiritual journey with all of these people and just with you all the time in the spiritual realms. Because she's what stood out about all of that, because I was really scared. I was like, I don't think she's supposed to be here. She's not even using her legs right now. And you were like, well, she can't. But then you even told me, I think you texted me later that night, because she had been holding a blanket, and you said, what color was her blanket? And I don't know, because I didn't know you very well then, but I think that was maybe a validating point for you at that time, that she was actually showing up to people and that this is who they were seeing, because the color matched the color that she had in life, that color of blanket. And is there anything else you want to say about that?
Well, it's just, there was a session for me. I wasn't doing it for somebody else. It was a medium on the West Coast. And, we had a time set, and we were gonna talk the next morning, or whatever the morning was. And anyway, when we got on the session, and I was speaking with this lady, she said, "All right, I got to tell you something first." She said, "I've always had spirits from family members and stuff come to me, and she said I always just kind of tell them, no, wait till we do the session. Just not gonna, And she said this person came at 5 a.m. for her." And she said, I'm literally like telling her no. And she said, this person came in and was like, no, we're doing this now. And she said it was just stern. And she said, it's a little girl, and all I could see was her torso up. Couldn't see any legs. And my daughter ended up, after her heart attack and her passing and then bringing her back, ended up getting spastic cerebral palsy, so she was quadriplegic. Couldn't do anything on her own. So she said this little girl was just firm, and she's like, we got to talk about Roland. And she was telling me all about it, and I had the lady describe her to me. I went through my phone, flipped through some pictures, text her the picture. I said, this is her. She goes, oh yeah, that's her. That's just some of the things that she's done. With my clients, she's not that firm. Usually she's just here and being that presence. And I've had numerous people say, well, there's this little girl walking around.
Oh no, she came in, she crawled up the wall behind me, she scared the Jesus out of me, because since she couldn't use her legs in life, that's how she came as a spirit. She was like crawling across things, and it just scared me.
Some people see her dancing, doing pirouettes, and it's just that, she's just doing her thing, so yeah, that was little Shaylin. So.
Beautiful. She's a beautiful, beautiful soul. And even that experience anchored in, I think on a deeper level, our work together, because I was originally sent to you over work with dark beings. Mm-hmm. This is the man. Lean forward a little bit. This is the man who actually vanquished the childhood demon who had been haunting me my entire life. So I went through a shamanic training, but when I started, dark beings coming up, things started coming up, things from childhood, remembering dark beings and things that had been messing with me since childhood. I think that a portal had opened in my home around this time. My teacher was like, my teacher didn't teach me any of this stuff. So, and it actually blew my mind that there are shamans and healers and light workers out there who don't know how to deal with dark things. They're not taught that. At that time, it didn't even make sense. I was like, how do you deal with the light without the dark? How do you do that?
Right.
But she ended up referring me to Roland, and we went through an entire session taking out legions of demons, so to speak, and going back to childhood. I feel like we burnt a contract that we had with this particular entity or whatever it was, and we've closed portals in my home before. So is there anything that you want to say, or any take that you have on like entities, attachments, dark beings, curses, things like that? Because these are definitely things that you work with within a balance, within your, what did you call it, your vibrational scale. This is something that we definitely work with.
Yeah, there is this like a scale I usually mention to people, and how I perceive it, how I feel it, and it's, love is on one end of the scale and fear is on the other. And I'm not saying fear is bad, it just is, and love, we love it, we thoroughly enjoy it, it resonates with us. So I always feel like, I believe that us as humans with this soul, we're just above halfway. And as we go through life, we're meant to fall below the line and come up above it. And as we just go through these experiences, so as we do, we're meant to experience the fears and the worries and different things, and we're meant to experience the joy and the love and excitement. But we as humans have a tendency to hold on to our baggage, our emotional woundings. Sometimes it's the emotional is just from somebody not being there when you're younger, or sometimes it's actually physical woundings, and it's can be fear, it can be not worthy, it can be anger, any of these things, and we hold on to that stuff, and it lowers us in this scale, it lowers our vibration. And in the past, when I worked with you, it was just believing and knowing it can be removed. It wasn't a question whether it can be. I know it can be because I'm working with a higher vibrational energy that they can't work with, so they're going to move. But it never really, to the last handful of years or last few years, understanding that it's and at that time I was thinking it was like bad. It was more even evil. But it's not, it just is. It's just where they're at. And when we have a tendency to hold on to this baggage, this emotional woundings, like I was saying earlier, it's like we just stepped into their playground. Their space, their world, their dimension, whatever, they're part of the scale. And we're really not supposed to be there, but we're there. So we spend a lot of time trying to figure out, we're trying to get rid of this attachments and things. So my work basically changes, like not get rid of them, but understand why, and then deal with the why. And the why is the emotional wounding. It's the low vibrational energy that puts you in there to start with. And at the same time, your body's meant to vibrate here, where all your cells flow well and everything. But if you're down here, then we start having, the older we get, we have more health issues, different things. And also, the more we're down here, the more the soul itself struggles, especially if it's carrying energy from past lives. So the entities are there, and we do have to clear them, because sometimes they need to be cleared off of people or places before the person can really start their work, because it can be a distracted feeling.
Right. Yeah.
But the bottom line is, we are a soul, we're a piece, we're a fragment of that I am, of source, of God, and that is love energy, and it is stronger and does not resonate with that lower vibrational energy. So the more we're into the higher vibration, once again, it's not really higher or lower, it's just we're in more towards
more
love.
towards the love vibration.
More towards the love vibration, the attachments aren't there.
So the more we raise our vibration or bring our vibration closer to love on this spectrum, the less we're in this dense energy of fear, which means that the less attachments that we feel, the less illnesses we have. So how do we go about raising our vibration more towards love or across this spectrum? Because I assume that's what you do in session.
Yeah, it's first of all, it's all energy. Okay, it's all energy in it, and I know there's tons of different modalities that are amazing, everything out there, and I may sound like I'm simplifying things, but that's the way I like it. I like to kind of just like, let's put it, it's just energy. This is lower vibrational energy that you're carrying. So for us as humans, it's emotions. And the question is, what are you carrying? What are you feeling? What is it, and where did it come from? For some people want to vocalize it. They want to, what works for them is, I'll stir up the energy within them and really try to get them back to a core event, a root event in their life. For us as a person, were you 5 years old? Were you 10 years old? For some people, it is some very traumatic stuff. For others, it may just be, two parents that worked all the time that weren't very loving, and this person, this soul, needed much more love. As an adult, we may look back at some of these instances, or that wasn't that big of a deal, and it's like, well, to the 5-year-old, it's huge. The 5-year-old is painful, and let's go back to that. And let's pull that out. Let's address that energy, because that is a lower vibrational energy. But the real thing is, if you go back to the beginning, it's like a ball of yarn. Here's the first heaviness, the first wounding, and everything else just builds on it. So by the time we, hit 40 years old, we're getting triggered much easier, and we're, it's like, why does this bother me so much? Why does this upset me so much? And it's because it's been layers and layers and layers of this. But if we get to the core event and get the person to release that, then most of the other layers start kind of collapsing. They still have to be dealt with, but you've taken all the source power out of it. And it's kind of the same with souls, in a sense of, there's energies from other lives, other dimensions of lives, where they've carried wounding, and they still see themselves as the wounded human, not as the dynamic, amazing, divine speck of God soul.
Not as the I am.
So if we can start dropping those vibrational energies, just know that we can. First, being aware that they are there, that this is the problem. It's not this over here. It's not the problem I dealt with today. It's this back here. Because a lot of times we'll address issues that just happened this week or 5 years ago, and they keep having to readdress it. Well, you're not getting to the core issue is still feeding it. That initial fear, the initial anger. We can drop that. It's like if you do averages. You drop off that one, your average just jumped. And then all of a sudden you start seeing things a little differently. It may be just a small amount, but just enough to go, oh, okay, that made sense. You couldn't see it before, but now you address the next thing, and your average drops again, and you just kind of you start that process. And once you move one, then the next one will happen, the next one will happen, and you eventually just kind of move back up that scale.
So addressing core original wounds and releasing emotion, especially fear emotion, or those emotions that are on this side of the scale, slowly just raise your average up to the love side of the scale. And I really liked that you used that almost as if it were like a personal baseline for your soul frequency, because that also explains a little bit about why a lot of the time, if we have a very low fearful soul baseline average, as you put it, one session might not put it here.
Mm-mm.
It just raises the baseline a little bit and raises the baseline a little bit. So people who've been dealing with things for lifetimes or very long periods of times, or have very negative emotions, very negative thoughts, it might take them a little longer to move through this scale, while others, it might be kind of instantaneous if they have the awareness, if they can release all of those things and just move themselves towards love and releasing from fear.
I've had some people of all of those areas where I've had people one session and they knock out this huge amount of fear, pain, anger, and it's just like everything spins around and they just run with it. They just like, okay, it was enough of a heaviness, it was enough of an anchor that they were able to drop, that it just, everything spun in their life, and it's like everything cleared up, and then they were able to address their other stuff. They were able to, a lot of these people are still seeing the other counselors and stuff, like, keep going. And those are some of the situations where people have said, you've gotten more out of me in one session than I did in 7 years of counseling. Well, that's because we're trying to go layers and layers and layers, and which need to be done, but if we knock out this one, so those vibrational experiences, those low, denser energies can be ours from this life. It can be what we're carrying from other people in this life, specifically mom, dad, grandmother, that we picked up and carried as children, and then stuff that's carried on a soul.
So I have three questions here in this space, if I can remember them. First one is, so how is your claustrophobia now?
Still there.
So addressed a whole other thing, but you're still a little claustrophobic.
Didn't come anywhere near it. Didn't touch it.
Okay. My second question is around physical healing on this scale. And my third question basically has to do with what you just said about carrying heavy energies from mom and dad. Would you consider these curses, and how are those broken?
That's the other thing is curses is just word energy, and sometimes I believe we do that to ourselves just by berating our own selves.
Word energy. The
It's
things
just,
that you say.
So, and the reason why I say that is because, we'll back up to your questions, but fear, when it goes back to attachments and stuff, I don't do protections anymore. I dropped those a few years ago, and it was at least a couple years ago, and it was because the idea and the message I got that by putting up protections, you're working from a state of fear.
Yep.
So, and we hear it all the time. I have people clients ask me all the time, what can I do to protect myself? I said, first thing, get rid of the fear and don't worry about protections. But, even in this metaphysical world, of energy and everything now, I hear it all the time, do this for protection, that for protection. But if we're looking at that, then you're working from a state of fear and you're already behind the game. So I'm losing my track of thought.
We were talking about curses and word energy.
Okay, so curses and spells often have a negative undertone to them. It puts, for some people, not all people, some people puts into especially curses, a sense of fear, like something bad. And word energy it's all that. It encompasses all of it. And there's word energy that's positive, and then there's some that's not. It's it's the same thing, lower vibrational, higher vibrational. So can it be word energy with a family? Yeah. But also at the same time, it's often generational. And it may not be the same energy from one generation to the next, but what it is wounding that occurs from one generation to the next, and it's done in a different way. In other words, if great-grandmother was neglected, then she's not in a state of mind, if she doesn't go through a healing to be the mother. So her then your grandmother may be, more angry, and then because of her state of mind, your mother was this way,
neglecting her children, and on and on.
And it's not like they were bad or it was intentional. It's just they were hurt and wounded. So, but as a child, I see this as when we're with a wounded parent, and as a 5-year-old, we're just like wide open, full of love, like a big sponge, and we're also still very connected spiritually in the divine. And I believe that we almost see our parents, or let's say the wounded parent, come in almost like they're carrying a box of rocks, and it's just all this weight, it's all this heaviness, and we just, I give these people examples like, you just took one off, put it in this pocket, took one off, put it in this pocket, but it really is just, we were just a sponge, we were just taken in. It's kind of like when the little child wants to dance and play and get dad's attention to make him happy, such that maybe he'll be happy and play with me. It's that kind of concept. What can I take? What can I do? And then, thing is, we don't let it go. We don't drop it. As a kid, it becomes what we think is us. And I've had numerous people where I work with them, where they would have all this anger, and they'd have their own anger, but after releasing a lot of theirs, there's still this anger, and they're like, where's this coming from? Like, oh, it's your mom's, or it's your dad's, or your grandmother's, whoever you were really close with at the time. And by releasing that and acknowledging, this is not mine, and we start getting rid of it, people actually start losing that sense of, well, that was me. Some people actually are even like, wow, that, who am I? Because I've been all this other feelings, all these other emotions over these years, and so it can be quite not just an emotional release, it can be quite where you've got to process. I tell people, sit and process this. Take your time. Don't rush the whole, go through all this. And a lot of people are like, oh, that makes sense. All the pieces start coming together, stuff they experience. So it's just
releasing those rocks and those things, or how even on an ancestral level or through word energy and bringing in love and positivity to our thoughts, we're just moving up that scale.
We're moving up that scale. And it takes time. Some people take a big jump, some people a little bit. Some people only release a little bit at a time. Some will come and purge everything, and it's just you do it at your own pace. But I'm not even certain we can get all the way up to the scale where we started at, because there's a lot of stuff in life we go through that changes us. But we can at least work closer and closer and closer. And for those who truly get into the work, then maybe you can even go and hold yourself above it for a time period, and then you'll come back down. But anyways, get your average up higher.
So I'm going to put you on the spot by adding a fourth question. Okay, so 2 of these questions you've answered. The third question will come back to you. The fourth question I have. So if the scale is like, for instance, here to here, you say love, fear. You say we're supposed to be more towards the middle, which I agree. That polarity, that duality. But we're just talking about entities and things that make us uncomfortable because we're too far on this side. What happens when we're too far on this side?
Once again, we're a human in a human body. And even we can't stay up here all the time, because it's not where we're meant to vibrate. It's not where these cells vibrate. Can we get up there and touch it, so to speak, spend some time in it, come back? Well, that's kind of the goal, is to get more into that. Because even if we're on the higher end above that, we're still projecting this stuff out. So the more we project, also we're helping the others around who are maybe struggling a little bit. So
I'd venture so far as to say that, and I feel like looking back at it now, I didn't really see it that way at first, but spending too much time on this side of the scale can also cause physical disease an illness because you're dealing with frequencies and vibrations that your body's not meant to hold or contain for long periods of time.
We have a tendency to step away from grounding when we're up here. And in some of the group events I'll do is I find myself when we raise the vibration, some people keep getting higher and higher. I have to go around and pull them back down. It's like grounding back into it. Because we this body, this journey we're on is I believe is supposed to be kind of the intermediary from the divine to earth. We are earthly beings. We rely on earth for food and water. That's our resume. That's where we're at. But just above, we're not with rocks. We're not with trees. We're not with the soil or the water. We vibrate above it. So that's why we can move between the two. But yeah, we're never meant to be.
Not in our human body. We're not.
And most of us are very earthly. We're not even with the divine, and we can survive perfectly fine that way. But the divine helps us get rid of a lot of this baggage, get rid of a lot of the, and
emotional stuff.
Because it's the awareness. The more we're in touch with the divine, the more we're aware of beyond this. The 3D. We're like, and we can expand and we can grow.
So the third question, the only one that hasn't been answered yet, have you seen divine physical healing through moving people up this scale towards love through the healing process?
Yeah, I've got one case was dealing with epileptic seizures. It's even written on the website. It was a statement that a person made, and actually his was more of a direct clearing and removing of energies, and it was a scenario that we didn't actually address the emotions, but the emotions came through as the work was being done. And he speaks of how through releasing those energies, he was able to overcome and deal with and grow from those seizures that he used to fall a lot. And poor guy would seem like he was always, banging his head or something and cutting something, and it was able to, through that releasing, it allowed his body to get balanced again, and then he was able to overcome those. So much I hear people talking about pain in the knees, pain in the backs, lower backs, things like that. It's literally just the heavy weights and pulling those off, then you see so much less of, not always completely getting rid of it, but so much less of the pains, because sometimes after enough years, there's already enough damage there that the body takes a while, or either maybe can't quite overcome it if the person's not truly ready, and coming from the heart. But there's generally a lot of release of that weight, of that tension. So yeah, it does happen. Scenarios with people with breathing issues, constant pains in the jaws and the teeth and the neck and things like that, that's tension related. And when you remove some of this, that they can't figure out where it's coming from, and we hear the stories like, I've always had this tension, I've always had this, I've always, like, okay, well, let's go back to where always started.
Yeah.
And then we can, and then it releases. So yeah, it does. For some that spurge a lot, then it comes quicker. But mostly, and we still are human. We still have to. Let's just say I haven't figured out the touch or anything yet.
The instantaneous touch.
No, I don't know about that. But anyway, but yeah, it does, and it's generally, just being truthful, it's generally slower. It's just a healing process, but it does change so that people can start healing. Because the body does the healing. We just got to get the body in the right frequency, the right vibration for it to do its work.
Yeah, I think we had a small conversation earlier where you mentioned something like that, about how it's so much more powerful guiding them into their own healing when people have the readiness, the willingness, and then the awareness of where it began and what needs to be released, and then it starts moving. And then you even told me a story about, I think, the woman who was trying to lose weight. Did she come to you to lose weight?
No.
Was it about something else?
No, yeah, it was something else. But it's just when we release those burdens, and through that we feel good about ourselves, and we see our truth, or we're able to look within and not without. We're not looking for answers outside of us. We can find that happiness. And sometimes people are trying to lose weight, but once they realize they're happy, they may gain weight. Or the person who's actually trying to gain weight because they feel like they're too skinny, they're just like, no, I'm good right here, and it's like when we get to the happiness, when we see that, that self-love, like we were talking about, when we see ourselves and love ourselves, like, no, this is me. And then you project that out, and then nobody, it doesn't matter anymore, because you're projecting it out, and generally the people that have come across you, it's like, oh yeah, they're good right where they're at. It's no longer an issue. It's not up here anymore. It's coming.
I love that. So sometimes with the physical stuff, it's less about needing to change the physical than it is about learning to love who you actually are, aside from all these emotional things, because once you release all the emotional baggage, you just love who you are anyways, and you just become happiness and the I am.
Well, there's this, one individual was just always criticized for their weight as a child, and by family members, which is even more painful. And by getting rid of all that, it was that lifelong struggle of trying to fit into somebody else's box, somebody else's perspective, what they should look like. And then by dropping that, they were like, okay, I'm good here.
Happy the way I am.
Yeah. And this is me, and this is what I project, and the people that should be with me will come to me. So yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you think people should know? You can book with Roland a healing session at inthehealinglight.com. He's got a lot of information up there. He does a lot of group healings. He's doing it. He's from North Carolina. You live in North Carolina, but he's here in South Carolina doing energy cascades. And to me, what that feels like is melting into the floor. So, but essentially, and you can explain it if you want to, but it's like rounds of bringing an awareness into the I am energy, essentially.
Yeah, so we take a group and we'll put it in a circle, and a couple goals. One of the goals is raising vibration. And when groups of people come together with the same intention, it magnifies, and the vibration can magnify. Whether it be 2 people or 10 people, it will magnify. And so one of the goals is we're going to raise the vibration, and the other goal is being able for you to see you in that higher vibration. We're more apt to see ourselves, but we often have to look past the wounding, and once again, the word, you said it before and I'll use it often, is awareness. And when we're aware that that's not us, it's not our truth, and I can look past while I'm in this state of higher vibrational energy, then I can see me. And for some people in these group events, some people have a lot of emotional release. Some people just float high. But there's some people that get messages. It's just whatever happens. But what we're doing is we'll do a few rounds of just being. In other words, people come into these groups and you're just being in the space. I'm not generally asking you to do anything. You just sit here. It's kind of like meditating, but not really asking for anything. It's just being. So with everybody just being in a space and allowing yourself to be here and feel everybody next to you, and we're all on the same page. We're all in the same intentions of being part of oneness and the divine. Vibration just rises. It just does. So I'll do it in rounds, generally 4 rounds over 2 hours. And the first round is usually the shortest round. That's the round that I will use to try to get everybody on the same kind of frequency to start, because everybody comes in and some are a little higher and some a little lower. And so the energy is kind of like this between people. the first round is let's see if we can get everybody kind of flowing, but after that, each time everybody should be getting a little higher and more floating, more information, more signs, more different things. But we're just getting closer to our own oneness, the true connection to the divine. Life is a vibratory experience. I heard somebody else say that, and I wish I could remember who said it, but in a podcast, and I so agree with it. It's where we're vibrating at, and by coming together as a group, not only are we helping each other because we're vibrating and projecting, but we're also projecting this out to the universe. Mm-hmm. And then, just like I was saying, averages before, we're raising the average for the universe some, so something else can be created.
Collective healing.
Yes.
Okay.
It's because we're all one. There's no separation. It's the idea and the knowing that just by being, things happen. Just by being in the presence of a group of people that are on the same page, the same intentions, we can heal ourselves, we can heal others, we can help others, we can change directions of things. And usually when we're all done, we're like, how do I leave?
I know. Well, you were talking about people floating, and to me, it's like the opposite. I just melt into nothingness and fall through the floor into the floor below me. I think that's what ended up happening last year. I was just like, I literally fell into the floor. It was insane. But it's lots of connection and lots of energy that starts flowing, and that's a beautiful way to look at it. I didn't even think of it then, because I know that we're connecting like one to each other when we're there and raising our vibrations, but just knowing that is raising the vibration of the whole planet and creating collective healing everywhere. So
I've had small groups. A lot of them are smaller groups, but I've had them, where like there's one place we were at a couple of years ago, and we did one, and the lights kept getting brighter and brighter and brighter, and then it popped.
Oh no!
And they didn't actually blow the lights out, but it's just the energy of it popped.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it was done, we asked the owner of the place. I said, "Did you turn the dial up?" He goes, "No, I didn't know what was going on there. It just kept going brighter and brighter and brighter." So it was just the energy, and then sometimes we end up getting so much in the way of divine spirits and guides coming to us that it's just all of a sudden we got this crowd around, and then they raise the vibration with us and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just that knowing, it's that awareness that we're not. There's no separation. This is all one, and just by being, it happens.
Beautiful.
Just be.
Just by existing as the spark, as the I am.
Yeah, as the spark, as the I am, exactly.
I super appreciate you coming on
Thank you.
letting me be weird and interview you. We love to just be weird and be ourselves and exist in this space, but Roland is such an important part of my personal journey, my personal healing and learning and growth, that it was really important for me to share you with the world. So thank you for sharing yourself. There's so much there. I heard you wanted to do a little stirring up for all of our viewers. Are you still open to doing a little stirring up for our viewers?
Sure. We can give it a try. What she means is...
what she means is...
it's literally stirring up with the energy. One of the things that the energy cascades also stirs up people, and I'm usually walking around the group on the outside or in the inside of the group, and I'm moving energy, and I'm also stirring up stuff too that may be kind of stuck and need some help moving, or may keep the person from connecting to the people around them. I often have people that come to me or reach out to me, and they're wanting to address certain issues. Most of the time they don't even realize it's emotional. They just know something's not right, and sometimes it's physical pain, sometimes it's others, but they may keep saying, I've just got all this energy in my shoulder or something, or in my knees. So stirring up sometimes just means let's just move some of it and see What stirs within you? What reacts within you? What feelings do you get? What memories pop back up? Because often those type of things provide awareness for you to change your direction potentially. If you're already on a healing journey, maybe you need to shift gears a little bit. I often get people that they think this is what it is, and then when we kind of stir things up, then they get enough of information, enough of a message like, oh, it's this, and I feel it through this. So we go back to the original thing. So essentially,
it's a way of finding that original core wounded space, and not the, what do they call it it's called referred pain, if it were a physical thing, so a referred emotional pain, and then we're just finding the core instead.
And see, if you just allow yourself to be open and not afraid to, don't be afraid of something popping up, because that's actually the greatest thing you can do is just allow it. When we allow it and accept it, that is a different path, is a different direction that we need to be looking, and we decide to take that path, then we're going to progress our healing. We won't necessarily feel like we're always in this loop. So what I'm going to do is, if you'll just relax, it doesn't matter if you see this, we're seeing this video now, or you see it 5 years from now. It's still energy. There's no time, there's no space. It just is. So just relax. And what I want to do is I want to just literally stir up basically from your knees and work up to your throat. Pay attention, before I start this, pay attention to what you feel physically and emotionally now. And then step back and just allow yourself to feel. Step out of the mind. Don't try to process anything. Just pay attention to what you feel. If you felt a heaviness within you, felt a pain within you, see if it shifts. See if the pain goes from a pain to a heaviness. See if the heaviness goes to a pain. Okay, here we go. Some of you, as I move it up closer to the throat, may feel a tightness in the throat. hope that helped some of you point out or guide you into areas that need to be checked out, need to be addressed.
Can I share my experience? If
Sure.
you guys are still processing and everything, so he calls this a stirring. Like he said, because we're looking for those core things that need to be healed, where we might think that we have a problem with one thing, but it's really relating back to a core thing. So we kind of stir this stuff up to pinpoint the thing that's actually there. So if you felt that stirring up and something came to your awareness where you had an aha moment of, oh, this is actually the thing that needs to heal, book an appointment in thehealinglight.com. But I actually got a healing through that. When you were sitting there talking about just be aware of how I feel before you start, I saw a volcano. Like up to my throat space, I saw a volcano with smoke coming up, that black smoke. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to observe this. And then you started working, and I felt like a pulling at the back of the heart, which I had an awareness that was there. I think I mentioned that earlier, something at the back of the heart because of some recent issues that had been coming up that I had to just professionally deal with, and just moving that energy through. But as you kept stirring, all of that just released, and I saw this green guide or entity woman come in, and she sat face to face with me, and it was like she pulled me in, like just grabbed me and pulled me in. And I had this sudden awareness, because of course I'm talking to her, I'm like, oh, are you my new guide? What's happening here? So why are we doing this? You know, the mind that keeps going. And rather than super answering, I saw a vision of your line, your scale. And she showed me that, and I saw this end of the scale. Too much high vibrational frequencies without enough grounding, without those negative ions. And that causes stress, a lot of buildup of energy in this part of the body, those headaches, neck aches, tension, heart stuff. A lot of that energy was here, and I was about to erupt like the volcano. And as soon as she pulled me in, and you had just about gotten to the throat space, I literally felt my ears come off my body and move down. It was the strangest sensation because my energy had been pulled down my body, and I was grounded in as soon as she touched me. So I thought I was having stress due to one thing, when in reality, if I were grounding more, especially with all of the healing that I do for people, like barefoot in the dirt for a set amount of time every single day, then that wouldn't have stressed me the way that it did. It wouldn't have been carried around with me the way that it was. And so it just pulled me down. Negative ions. I feel great. Thank you. So
it's true. We, in this body, we have to be, we can't always be here. We want to because it feels so good with the mind and the connection, but we still are in this body. We have this experience. This is what we're here for, is experience. It's, whether we think it's good or bad, it's still an experience. And from the experience, everything grows. Everything grows.
Thank you, Roland.
Well, thank you. Enjoy being here.
Say goodbye to all of your now beloved and devoted followers. Bye.